Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, great leaders, scholars, lovers of knowledge, creators of, lovers of wisdom and creators of knowledge. Thank you very much for joining us again tonight on the 30th of October 2024. We are here again as leaders in this community of leaders to discuss about leadership, to empower each other, to inspire each other, to correct each other, to admonish each other. Yes, as an iron sharpens another iron, so shall leaders do. That's exactly why we are here. We are going to be addressed by my sister, Portia. Sis Portia Thokoane is the Human Resources Director at Nestle, and then she's responsible for East and Southern Africa region. So already you can imagine how big her portfolio is. Hence, she's a very, very busy person. She is a transformative HR leader with over 20 years of experience in shaping impactful HR strategies across diverse industries. As the Human Resources Director at Nestle for East and Southern Africa region, she oversees HR operations for 23 countries, driving initiatives that align with complex regional dynamics. Her career journey began with pivotal roles at Whirlpool SA and Spark Group, showcasing her expertise in commercial and manufacturing human resources. She then progressed to Eaton Corporation, where she led HR functions across multiple African markets. As Group Chief Human Resources Officer at Dark Fiber Africa, Portia set the strategic HR agenda, supporting both the executive leadership and the board. Portia holds an MBA and Master of Philosophy in Management Coaching from Stellenbosch, with advanced leadership credentials from the University of Michigan and Stanford. Her career is marked by a commitment to ethical, inclusive leadership that fosters growth and resilience in both individuals and organizations. That is Sis Portia Thokoane. Ladies and gentlemen, she will be addressing us your face. Thank you very much, Sis Portia, my sister, once again. Thank you so much. I know you are a very busy person, but just for your humility and your respect, I've been talking to you over the phone. I've been saying that someone who's holding this big, big portfolio, but she's so down to earth. Thank you so much. You lead by example. That's a great one. So you can address us now, sis, and then we will do that after that. I can see someone raising their hand. We can only do that after the address, please. Over to you, Sis Portia. Thanks, sis.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everybody. Prof, you are so patient. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much. I know we've been speaking for quite a while now, and I'm truly humbled, for your invitation. I feel like, I'm a baby, looking at the portfolio of the audience you have. I'm a baby in this field. I feel like I'm the one who should be, in the audience learning and listening. But I'm really honored, to be invited to share my insights. I believe that there's nothing new under the sun around leadership. There is so many books that are written. There's so many courses that are designed, around leadership. And yet it remains one of the most challenging skills for one to master. And I appreciate your platform, that it's becoming a religion, that every Wednesday, the leadership religion, is being unpacked and tackled. And I just love what you said, because there's a crux of my discussion today. The consistency, is what is really going to get us to transform our continent. So thank you so much for that. Prof, true corporate person, I've got a deck. I've got a slide deck. I'm going to try to not do what we call death by PowerPoint. I have also attempted, I'm trying to move on with the times. I have attempted to request the assistance of my avatar, to help me in this conversation, and hope we're not going to get any tech glitches. Colleagues, in recent years, particularly last year, 2023 and 2024, we have seen a really marked increase in CEO departures, across industries globally. And the significant number of these departures were tied to cultural and leadership challenges. It's just really the first quarter of this year alone. We saw the exit of CEOs from companies rising by an astonishing 50%, and that making about 622 CEOs globally who have exited organizations. Some of you may be following in the FMCG space, where I'm at. Just 2 months ago, a board meeting happened. At the end of the board meeting, we get an announcement that the CEO of our organization is exiting. So we're seeing more of these radical steps, which boards are taking, really giving us a highlight of an important shift in organizations. Companies are increasingly recognizing that the quality of leadership, culture in an organization is not just a nice to have, but it is a crucial factor in the success of an organization. Boards are showing more and more less tolerance for leaders who, despite they may have operational success, they may do really well in their numbers, but when they struggle to embody a positive and inclusive environment, boards are no longer tolerant, which for me is really a positive move. So this growing emphasis for values-driven organizations really speaks to the need that I would like to believe, Professor, you are looking to address with the colleagues. How do we become proper care, people ambassadors, culture ambassadors, as well as being business strategists? I think that is what this platform is also aiming to unpack. So today, really, I'm just going to ask my avatar to help me with the introduction of this conversation. I will talk to understanding what really is toxic leadership. Nothing new that you're going to hear, but however, toxic leadership may mean different things to different people. What are some already known strategies? Reminder, what are some already known strategies for detoxifying leadership? How do we measure and sustain the change that we're aiming for? Sorry, I actually pressed my mouse in error.
You may be wondering why this topic. In my years across diverse organizations, I've witnessed how profoundly leadership shapes the culture, morale, and potential of a workplace. When leadership is grounded in empathy, respect, and integrity, it fosters thriving, motivated teams. But when leadership becomes toxic, it can create environments of fear, disengagement, and diminished productivity. This topic is vital to me because I've seen the transformation possible when leaders commit to changing from toxic to empowering inclusive practices. It's about the impact we as leaders have not only on business results, but also on the people who drive those results every day. This discussion is about the essential journey of detoxifying leadership for lasting positive change.
I am a baby boomer, colleagues. I'm trying to get into the world of AI. So technology is really part of our lives now. It's part of my learning journey. So what is toxic leadership? So this is really characterized by behaviors that harm employees and undermine, the overall well-being, and harm. We all know, where employees these days, employees are talking about mental health. We're talking about employees that really not feeling that they are safe in the spaces where they are working. So common traits that we're finding, in this toxic leadership, the concept of micromanagement, still very prevalent in organizations. Blame culture, very prevalent in organizations which lack transparency, fear-based tactics, and most importantly, particularly in the era that we're in, leaders who truly lack empathy for their employees. The impact to organizations, we've seen that this is nothing new. Reduced morale. People are coming because they are desperate. They need to earn salaries. The turnover is extremely high. You would have seen that, particularly in South Africa, we have had 16.6% of turnover, employee turnover in our companies. And resignations are contributing over 40% of that. So this, we know as leaders, it's highly costly for our organizations. And most importantly, you cannot have leaders who are not performing to their peak. So what is the cost of this toxic leadership? As we've spoken, unhappy employees are going to be totally disengaged. We are seeing more and more health issues. We are seeing eroded trust. So employees are really not trusting the leaders, and they're even getting to an extent of working against leaders. That is really something to be concerned about. We are seeing, some of you may be following the story of Ernst & Young that we saw. It was all over the news of a young lady who died because of work. We are hearing stories in our own country as well. Either employees are collapsing, in the workplace and dying, or employees are committing suicide. And the cause of the suicide is work. So death has become one of the big human costs of leaders in organizations. From a business impact, already touched on that. Recruitment, I'm in the HR space. I know the millions that we spend on recruitment, constantly replacing roles and retraining employees. Really something that we need to be looking at as organizations. How do we retain and grow our employees and save up, on this constant rehiring and replacing? Most importantly, what I see in our era, particularly for multinationals that I've worked for, reputational damage. Reputational damage is a big risk for business. Employees who you want to have in your organization, they care for the company that they want to work for. So if your reputation is not great, they're going to say, no, thank you. I am not interested in working for your organization. You will end up getting employees who are not the best out of the pack. So it is so important for organizations to protect their reputation, and ensure that the message out there is clearly reflecting what is inside, and being an enabling, empowering, and engaging environment where everybody can go in and thrive. So reputational damage, really something that I would like to double click on and encourage us to really think about: how do our internal behaviors as leaders, how do they speak to really the reputation of our organizations? So the root causes are quite interesting. So I truly believe that leadership is all about us as individual leaders, not the people that we are leading. And the biggest factors that determine whether you're a great leader or you're a toxic leader, it really starts with you. And I see that insecurity is one of the big problems. Insecurity leads to leaders who are fearful of failure, leaders who are all about power and control, leaders who don't trust their people. They create camps, within their organizations. And all of that is driven by insecurity. And worse, that insecurity is made worse by a leader who is not even self-aware. They don't even know that their behavior is driven by insecurity. So that I find to be extremely, extremely dangerous. And we've always touched on the fact of, either unresolved personal issues or even childhood. We talk, generally about childhood traumas, but we do see some of these issues coming up in the workplace. So as a leader, each of us, we need to go back, reflect, and ask ourselves, how am I? How am I in terms of how I feel about myself, the confidence that I have on my abilities, on myself as a human being? And are there any issues outside the organization that are going to come and show up? Because you cannot wear a mask. When you get into an organization, you bring your whole self. There is an issue here. See, there's a typo here. There is an issue of conventional wisdom. And conventional wisdom says that leadership is all about power. Employees or labor is a commodity. So when we look at labor as commodity, then usually there's going to be the carrot and stick type of approach to working with those employees, as opposed to care and growth, of your employees. That determines the type of environment that one is going to have in their organization. So is the legitimacy of your power as a leader based on care, growth, empowerment, enablement of your employees? That's really a question that I'm going to ask you. So some of the triggers that we have as leaders, we have a really high pressure that is coming on us from our boards, pressure for just the numbers. And then it comes across as if everything else is a by the way, I need to make time for my people, by the way. We get to forget. We get to forget that our jobs is to really focus, invest on the people for those results to come. So we focus on the stress of the numbers. How do we get that number? Also, huge challenge, lack of accountability. We don't know where to place accountability for what, in organizations. And we don't take time to really answer that question. Who is responsible for a task? And what task, who is responsible for what, for us to place the accountability where it belongs. As much as there is so much out there in terms of leadership training, I am super impressed, Prof, to see that your audience diligently make time for this self-development investment, in today's sessions. But on a day-to-day basis, leaders do not have time to attend training. They are chasing that number. They're constantly in meetings. They're constantly having to answer, to the principals. So that lack of investment in really taking meaningful time and effort to unpack what is it that I need to learn or unlearn as a leader for me to show up in a different way in an organization. That also causes the problem of toxic leadership. Another big area to talk on is the organizational culture. What are some of the organizational cultural issues that I've seen? We get to reward aggressive behaviors. Some aggressive leaders who deliver results, yes, we get to reward them We reward them with promotions, we reward them with amazing perks, and we're therefore rewarding and perpetuating the behaviors that we're saying we don't want in organizations. That's really something that gets us to look at what message are we sending out in our reward systems. What we incentivize or we disincentivize is sending a message. What message are we sending in our organizations? Values are absolutely critical, and values in action, not values on our not values on our walls, in our reception halls, in our meeting rooms. Values in actions, behaviors that one can observe, can point at and say, this behavior truly is in line with our value, and our value says this is what is acceptable here and this is not acceptable here. So we need to clarify the values in our organization. So where the values are unclear, then anything goes. So looking at what strategies can we employ to detoxify leadership. First, I've touched on this. Self-reflection is absolutely critical, and accountability. We as adults learn from self-reflection. When somebody comes and tells you, do this, don't do that, you are wrong here, there is immediate resistance. So we owe it to ourselves to stand in front of the mirror and say and ask ourselves, what kind of leader am I? What kind of leader am I? That is absolutely critical, because that is when you're going to take a step back and say, okay, I think I need to work on certain things here. I need to stop certain behaviors here. The manner in which I speak to people, the persona that I carry when I walk into the business environment. Is it a welcoming persona? Is it an intimidating persona? Is it a persona that is saying, hey, listen, the boss is here, so everybody needs to step aside? So it's absolutely critical for us to self-reflect, and most importantly, take accountability. And accountability requires vulnerability from us as leaders. Leaders, we struggle to say, yeah, I think I have not been doing right here. I think I've not been behaving right. Or I think I did not speak well in this meeting, colleagues. I need to apologize, go and reflect, and I will do things differently next time. Or colleagues, give me feedback, on how you see me showing up, as your leader. So if we don't do that, it's going to be challenging for us to take accountability. So we need to take the time to reflect, on how we're showing up. Feedback loops, absolutely critical. So most companies, if not all, they have got feedback mechanisms. There is some employee engagement survey, whatever. There's so many feedback mechanisms which are in place. But what I find to be missing in most conversations, employees ask their leaders and give feedback, but then they don't hear from us. Especially if the feedback is not what we want to hear, it's not pleasant. We go radio silence and we don't act on the feedback. So it is absolutely critical that the message is clear to our employees. If you say this to us, this is what we're going to do. We have heard you said this, we did. That is absolutely critical. Then that tells our employees that we are co-building, co-creating an environment that we all want. And when feedback comes in, it's a safe space for that feedback to come in. And there's definitely that's something that is going to be done about that feedback. And even if there's something that gets done about that feedback, to say, you know what, this one that you're asking for, we will not be doing for this reason. But it's absolutely critical for the feedback loops that we have in our organizations to really be meaningful and add value to our people. Coaching, I've touched on training, development, but coaching is so critical. What we do at Nestlé, which I find to be of immense value, every leader from the first day that he walks in, he's got a transitional coach. So we have a coach that will help them for that first 6 months of their employment, how to navigate the environment, external organization, how to navigate, how to team, with the executive team, how to connect with the different members of the executive team, how to connect with their actual teams. I found that to be absolutely meaningful. And after that transitional coaching that happens, then they move on to a different coach that is really holding their hand throughout their journey with the organization on how are they showing up, unpacking some of the challenges in a safe space, unpacking some of the challenges with maybe the CEO is one of the challenges, is the challenge, or the board challenges with their teams. And we found that it really helps our leaders to be constantly working on themselves. So another key point for me to mention here before I move on is key thing that through coaching, we get help to suspend control, because that's what drives us as leaders, control. So how do we suspend control in order to enable our people? The current workplace practices rewards leaders for what they get. So we like to say we drive results through people. And I just would like to offer an opinion to say, how about we shift from rewarding or holding our leaders accountable for what they get from their people, but reward them for what they give to their people. So are we as leaders giving the care, giving the growth, cultivating a high caliber of people within our organizations? And that requires a shift in our mindset, and it requires more of a longer term view to how we look at our reward systems. So if we're going to reward our leaders we say we want to sweat the assets, we want to sweat the assets. People are not assets to be sweated. And then we're working people to death. And then we say, wow, you overshot your commercial targets, but then there's a bloodbath, behind you. You extracted, you got from people, but then we are rewarding the wrong things. We need to reward what we give to our people, giving our coaching, giving our time, giving our guidance to our people, giving the investment to their development, giving the investment to sponsoring, our people. And with all of that, then we're going to have people that will go to the ends of the world for us. So really something to think about.
There are various strategies we can apply to transform toxic work environments. Amongst them are self-reflection and accountability, which entails encouraging leaders to evaluate and own the impact of their actions on team dynamics. Journaling and self-assessment surveys are a good way to do this. Feedback loops. This entails implementing a structured, anonymous systems to capture honest feedback from employees. This can be done through regular pulse surveys and suggestion boxes. Training and development, with a focus on emotional intelligence, empathy, and conflict resolution in leadership training. An effective way to utilize this strategy is through one-on-one coaching and role-playing exercises. Transparency and communication, through openly discussing past issues, communicating intentions for change, and being transparent about decisions. This can be achieved through simple weekly team updates and transparent goal setting. Empowerment of employees. Here we need to foster employee voices, recognize contributions, and encourage decision-making participation. We can achieve this through roundtable discussions and peer recognition programs. Lastly, establish new norms and rituals. Through developing positive practices that reinforce desired culture and values. Examples of this are win of the week sessions and feedback huddles.
Thank you so much, Avatar.
Let's take a look at a case study where these transformative steps were taken. Company background. A medium-sized tech company was facing high turnover, low morale, and a reputation for a high-pressure, toxic work environment. Frequent employee complaints highlighted micromanagement, lack of recognition, and high stress levels due to unrealistic deadlines. To address this, the business took the following transformation steps. Leadership overhaul. The organization brought in new leadership with a commitment to transparency, empathy, and team empowerment. Transparency and communication. Leaders held an open forum to address the company's past challenges and shared a new transparent vision with clear steps for improvement. New policies. Introduced flexible working hours, mental health days, and clear channels for feedback, all intended to improve work-life balance and build trust. Cultural realignment activities. Implemented Celebration Fridays, where teams would recognize weekly achievements, and created a mentorship program to foster positive leader-employee relationships. Having taken these transformative steps, the business was able to quickly reap the rewards. Within 18 months, turnover reduced by 30%, employee engagement scores increased by 40%, and the company's Glassdoor rating improved significantly. Employees reported feeling more valued and motivated, with a renewed sense of purpose and trust in the leadership. This case study illustrates the profound impact of dedicated efforts to transform a toxic workplace culture through strategic leadership shifts and organizational support.
Thank you. So really important that we build support systems for a lasting change. And particularly as academics, we like to think that there needs to be rocket science things, to shift an organization, or very complex frameworks that we bring into organization. But however, really simple tactics which are already there, done repeatedly over a period of time, then you get to see your system, your organization changing. So we've for decades been speaking about mentorship programs, leaders who are learning from other leaders who are doing better in certain things that we are struggling with. That partnership is invaluable. So we need to intentionally look for positive leaders who exemplify what we want to learn or what we aspire for. That investment always pays off. With regards to accountability, I am again going to say accountability needs to be where it rests. We reward and hold our employees accountable for the tasks that they perform. Us as leaders, we are accountable for how we extract the best out of those employees. How do we get our employees to give us their best? Figuring out and spending time in that is what we are accountable for. And really, we need to have check-ins, peer reviews, and empower our people. When we empower them because we have enabled them, and that is going to invoke for them to really give us their best. So I like this quote, that persistence and resilience only come from having been given the chance to work through difficult problems. So we need to be persistent and resilient in ensuring that we shift our organizations. So this is something that everybody would possibly have, in their organizations. What are the KPIs? We need to intentionally have KPIs that are shifting the health of our organizations, our successions. If we say we are accountable for cultivating amazing people, we need to be ensuring that our succession plans is where we are getting the future leaders in organizations. Are we getting future leaders from outside the organization, or are we growing them within our organization? So we can have such succession plans, but if they're not implemented, then something is wrong with where we are focusing our energies. So it's absolutely critical that we have the right KPIs to shift the transformation in the organizations. We've spoken about surveys, meaningful surveys, feedback, which is acted upon. That is absolutely critical, especially if you are running a big organization. You have to have some sort of survey for you to get feedback from your people, and ensure that we are shifting. We are not shy or running away from shifting, changing our methods in line with the feedback that our teams are having, or in line with the challenges that we're having in the marketplace. That's absolutely critical. So, colleagues, thank you so much for this conversation. Last words from me, quoting what the professor has said: leadership is a journey, it's not a destination. We need to shift our mindset from intent to change others, but rather to change ourselves. Consistency and patience is absolutely critical. Doing those seem to be mundane, boring, steps, activities with our teams, but through consistency, that is what is going to transform us. And also knowing and understanding that really detoxifying our leadership is an ongoing process. It's not there's a once-off project. No, it is an ongoing, every single day, through our moment-to-moment interactions, internally and externally, and that requires a lot of commitment, a lot of reflection and support, for each other. I've heard Prof say leadership is a lonely journey. It really is, and we need to be there to support, be vulnerable with each other, and to learn from each other. So thank you so much, Prof and team.
Wow, thank you very much. Portia, thanks a lot. Very insightful. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Very, very informative, very instructive there. Thank you so much, my sister, for
Thank you, Prof.
illuminating us. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, now's the time to engage with the speaker. Can we do that? As I said, we'll do that by you can raise your hand, and then we'll allow you to speak. As we requested that, please, when you speak, if you can just show your video, or you can do that via the chat room. We always encourage people to express themselves, because it's always better if we hear you saying something. So that's the time now where anyone who wants to engage with the speaker, you can talk about it. I heard about, and you said something very interesting there, Sis Portia, that I worked at a corporate level for many years, for big corporate, and I know exactly what you spoke about. But also, I teach at the business school, so I interact a lot with executives and board members and all this. So when you said leaders, I just don't have time for training, and they want training, but it's competing with so many priorities, so many meetings, so many deadlines, so many things. I always say, while we are teaching there as a lecturer, there is somebody who's got a computer, and I always ask themselves, those people who are looking at their computers, are you looking at my notes, that what I'm teaching here, or are you now busy with your work? Because I'm going to catch you in my assignment or in my exam. And you'll find that really others, because of the deadlines, and obviously that's one of the things when we do executive development, that we always have to understand that we are dealing here with very, very busy people. What would be your advice, Sis Portia? Obviously, you and I, you've said already, we agreed on the same quotation, that leadership is a journey, not a destination. And really, no matter at which level, you still have to get some or to attend some kind of training refresher course. That is why you have been sent to Stanford, to Michigan. That is why the people who are coming to Wits, to Gibbs, to others at a very, very senior level, just to get that refresher courses. But at the same time, they're very, very busy. What would be your advice, Sis Portia?
Prof, you are reminding me in relationships, the single lane, you have ladies complaining that, he says he's too busy to phone me, there was that song, Never Too Busy, and for me, it's about intention. What is the intent? You are never busy or too busy for what really matters to you. And it starts at the top. It starts with the CEO. The CEO is the chief principal in the organization, And if the CEO is saying this matters, I've got an intention to shift an organization in a specific direction, that CEO is going to create a space to say, we are going to get into a boardroom and we're going to have this specific conversation. I recently hosted a conversational intelligence full day session with I've got a 23 strong exco, very big, and I've got colleagues who've been at Nestle for 20 plus years, 23 years, 24 years, 36 years. And I heard them saying, for the first time in the many years of being an executive, I am really being present and enjoying training about conversational intelligence, because I'm learning things that I didn't know before. Before, you get your technical qualification, you work up through the ladder, and then boom, here's a group of people for you to lead, But to get the basis of understanding, how does the human being operate, and how does the brain work? When you communicate in this manner, what level of communication are you having? Are you having a level 1 communication, or are you having an empowering communication? So really, Prof, bottom line for me, one word: intention, intent. You will make anything happen in your organization if you want it to happen.
Powerful. Thank you. Thank you very much, my sister. I see hands there. I will take Dr. Thandiwe Gama. She will be followed by Sis Johanna. In that order, please. Can you, if you don't mind, Sis Portia, let's take those two, then you can respond to them, and then we can take another round after them. Dr. Gama, over to you, sis.
Thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues.
Good evening, Doc.
Portia, thank you very much for that, insightful conversation, presentation, but also thought-provoking in many ways. I took out quite a bit, and I actually made a bit of notes here for myself. Some are just comments, some are just questions. But perhaps let me just start with the one that I find a bit unsettling for me, and maybe having, when some of us that are in the consulting field, when you consult with organization, you tend to sort of meet certain people, meet certain cultures, realize how differ from one to the next in terms of how they do things and so forth. But one thing that I think organizations to some extent seem to be, I wouldn't say oblivious, but almost like resigned acceptance of almost normalizing that in every organization or in most organizations, it is normal to have some level of toxicity. And I've heard some of the EXCO members saying, when you sit with them, say, no, Dr. Gama, we've been having these problems. We've tried, but it looks like we're not winning in this. And you are sort of want to ask to say, how much is it costing the organization then if it doesn't warrant so much of your pressing attention so that you put all your sort of heads on it and try and deal with it? And you mentioned some of these cost factors, like obviously the erosion of trust, which is another big thing. When you speak to employees in organization, you hear different stories. When you speak to EXCO and senior management, you hear another story. So that erosion of trust, obviously the high turnover, which I think I was quite impressed with you showing us how you've sort of turned around in an organization, especially when it comes to the high level turnover. But let me just quickly get to my question. For me, I wanted to just find out, how is it that if honestly there are these costs to organizations, if they leave the level of toxicity to be at almost alarming levels or abnormal levels, if I may say, how much does the organization want to not invest, but pay attention to this? I mean, why is it that it's somehow still there within organizations, despite the fact that you hear some of the executives saying, no, we're working on it. If it's costing them so much, why are they not paying attention to this? That's one question. And maybe let me also just ask the second one so that we maybe give other people a chance. Another one that I jotted down was, when you said something about employees sometimes not taking a job within an organization simply because of the reputation of that organization. I thought to myself, that to some extent would be quite, I suppose, a challenge, especially when you look at our South African situation, where the level of unemployment and the job scarcity is so rife that even when you know the reputation of this organization, because you need this job desperately and they've made you an offer, you take your heavy heart to the organization, go and work for them, knowing their reputation, at least for yourself, that it's not under normal circumstances, you would have chosen to walk away. But because you need this job desperately, you join the organization. And then there, the organization sits with an employee who already, when they entered this door, they entered the door with a level of not trusting the organization, a level of some heavy-heartedness about the organization and its reputation. Perhaps your comments on that one. I'll leave it at those two for now.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Gama. Powerful there. Ashes of values, personal values versus the organizational values. Thank you. Now we'll take Dr. Johanna Dekker. Doc, over to you there, and then we'll go to Sis Portia after Dr. Dekker. Is Dr. Dekker there? I see the hand. Are you still there, Doc? Maybe let's ask you, Portia, to respond to Dr. Gama meanwhile. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Gama. I love consultants. and let me tell you why. You know, I think it's a scripture in the Bible, you know, that says a prophet is not appreciated in their land, you know. And it's the same that happens with leaders within organizations. You know, those leaders who speak truth to power, you know, who say things that others don't want to hear, that they're not appreciated, you know, in their own land. Actually, they get persecuted, you know. So when you come as a consultant, you're an expert, you know. You are not there with the politics of the stomach. No, you're not there. You know, you're saying, what value do you want me to add in your organization? You know, let us contract. Here is how I operate. I'm going to tell you some things that you don't want to hear, Madam CEO, you know. And here is the intention. Here's the journey that we're walking. You know, let's contract, you know. So you are so much positioned to come back and say, okay, we contracted on this journey, which I agreed to support you on. But as we're moving, I can see we're veering off. You know, I see how you speak with your leaders. You know, can I come and become a fly, you know, in the wall of your meetings? I'll just sit there. I will not contribute. I just want to observe the dynamics of the meetings, you know, and then you come back with feedback. Let's reflect on how you are running these meetings. Let's reflect on what you need to do differently. So you're in an amazing space to make a meaningful change, you know, with your clients. And one of the things that you're saying are so real, you know, where still you are seeing, like you said, at alarming levels, the cost is so high, you know. And why? Because of the things that I've spoken about. First, what are we rewarding? How are our performance management systems measured? Our performance management systems are designed to say, listen, CEO, here is your commercial target for the year. You make these targets. Your LTIP is going to be very healthy. Your STI is going to be very healthy, you know. And then we have got a succession pathway for you. If you're in a big organization, you know how it is. You know how the politics of I want to move to this market, this country, this role, this bigger, you know, opco. You know, you find that in play because boards or excos actually are incentivizing that behavior, you know. The moment you stop incentivizing it, then you start to communicate a different message to say, this is not acceptable. This is not tolerated. So which means a CEO themselves need to be ready to say, listen, I may lose my bonus if my people are not happy, if my people are not healthy, if I have an employee dying. I mean, we know recently of a story of an employee who jumped out of a building, right? So if you have something like that, heads have got to roll, you know. But if it's just, by the way, you know, someone is in hospital because of burnout, you know, or look at how much we are replacing our turnover, how much we're spending. And it's not something that is part of our metrics of what we are measuring our leaders on, is never going to shift. So we communicate through agreements, but we reinforce through our measurements. What are we measuring? What are we incentivizing? And what are we disincentivizing? So that absolutely is critical in my view. You also saying something that is so close to my heart when you talk of someone who's desperate, you know, for a job. For one, when I coach our teams, I say, be such an expert in your field that you are spoiled for choice in terms of jobs, in terms of organization to join. You know, that you are not in a position where you are desperate, that you will take whatever that comes your way. You know, master your craft, invest in mastering your craft so much to be in that position where you can say, no, sorry, you know I need a job, but here is my options. Sorry, that company is not in line with my values and I will not join it. So I have had this experience where we appoint someone, actually a leader, a middle-level leader, who gets to hear an exec they will be reporting to, and they say, sorry, I'm not interested. The reputation of that leader is out there. I've heard so much about this person, which is terrible. Sorry, I'm not going to work for your organization. You know. However, what type of employee is able to do that? Is that person who knows that I have value to bring in an organization need my services and skills, and they're willing to pay for it. So really, as we go around encouraging each other, advising each other, mentoring each other, and the young people that are coming behind us, is to really encourage them to say, position yourself to be spoiled for choice. And you know the power of the masses. When you get into it helps us in the people agenda. When we say EXCO, look at what is happening to our reputation outside. You know, this is the high caliber people that we want to attract into our organization, but sorry, they don't want because of how we behave as leaders. That helps to really advance the conversations. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
I do have a few other, but let's give others a chance. But it's
We must
nice.
do that, Doctor. We must do that, Dr. Gama. Thanks, my sister. Thank you very much. I see Dr. Decker. Seems like she's back. Over to you, Dr. Decker.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Prof. Mazwe, for such a wonderful platform. And I would also like to thank Portia for such a brilliant presentation. I just want to question the sustainability of the strategies that you actually provided. And I would like to bring to your attention to say, for example, when organizations do staff satisfaction survey to check what actually grieves employees. And there are key elements that actually came out, such as shortage, which is human resources, and then lack of resources as well, tools for trade, and bullying as well keeps on coming out. And maybe let me just mention those three for now. Now, having said that we are aware that there's staff shortage. To my surprise, when budget is being done, rarely do they think of increasing capacity. And you go down to the operational people down there, you'll hear them saying, and this is I'm quoting because I've been there, they will say, we have stretched and we cannot stretch anymore. We cannot stretch anymore, meaning that they have used their resilience and they've got nothing anymore to use again, to sustain them. Now, I've heard you mentioning quite interesting issues like we need to, for example, introduce flexi hours. We need to observe mental health days. Those are some of the strategies. But those strategies, they've been implemented in some organizations. But employees still say, we cannot stretch. We have stretched so far. And what then that results into high absenteeism, excessive chronic diseases, dismantling teams. People feel like, I cannot pay with this one because always she's not on duty. All those dynamics are happening. That's point number one. Point number two that I would like to raise is issues around mental health in leadership. Most of the leaders, they do have mental health issues, which they don't want to acknowledge, or if they're aware of that, they're not doing anything about it. And you find also that they have so much power that other executives, when they are aware of that manager has so much, mental health issues, they're not in a position to confront or to assist that man. And the very same manager will actually bully, the rest of the team. And that will result into high turnover, again, absenteeism, and so forth. The other issue that I have observed in organization, which particularly is around your field HR, not necessarily that I'm putting you on a spot, but you find that when a new manager is being promoted to a new position to be a manager, there's no capacitation. She enters into a position, and already when she is there on the very same day, she's been given a file to say, in this unit, there is so much absenteeism. In this unit, there are so many conditions, there are so many diseases, there are this and this and this. Already on her first day, she's just been put into a pool of problems, no induction whatsoever, no capacitation that has happened. And that is the area of HR, which I feel sometimes, HR is not doing good in certain areas to capacitate managers. Maybe let me stop there and let me hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc. Let me start with this one, with this last one. So I am, let me talk personally about myself. I'm not an academic. And so when I completed my MBA, those who've done MBA, you know how painful it is. I was like, no more. Here's someone saying, go to school, I'm not interested. However, I observed exactly what Dr. Decker is talking about. We have this star performer who does so well, and then we say, yeah, because they are doing so well technically in their job, we're going to promote them to be a leader of people. And we promote them, and then we fold our arms and say, this one is going to figure it out. And then fast forward, especially in an organization that has got a high value system, we say, no. We measure our performance based on what you execute equally as how you execute it. So you are failing on the how, so we're going to fire you, And unfortunately, being in HR, I was part of a whole lot of those firings. But then I observed and I'm like, no, this is wrong. This is an injustice to human beings. This is an injustice to society and to families. And we are responsible as organizations to build the capability of the leaders to transition from one manner of operating to another manner. Now, it's no longer me as an individual contributor, but then how do I team with other people for them to add, to shine and deliver results? So that is why I actually went back, for 2 years and did the Masters in Leadership Coaching, because I wanted to learn how do I help leaders, with that transition. That is a reality of what we're experiencing. Sorry, my puppy is getting excited. That is a reality that we're experiencing in organizations. And it really also feeds into that element of turnover. You grow someone, you go and destroy them. You basically destroy somebody's career, because if you're firing them, wherever they go, they're going to struggle to get into a leadership level. You destroy their career. You now want to go and hire somebody else to come into that leadership role, instead of making the investment to say, what capabilities are required? What do you need? What do you need yourself? How to have conversations, how to have difficult conversations, how to set up, goals with your teams, how to give performance feedback, how to take feedback yourself. We need to invest in that, for us to do right by our people. So really, it's 2024. As I would like to think that organizations have have really smelled the coffee on that one, and they're making the due investment. The next point that you spoke about is resources. Also square in my plate. Where I am currently, I am responsible. I've got a structural cost target, so I need to ensure that the entire organization is keeping up at a certain percentage of structural cost, percentage of our net sales. So I'm constantly checking, okay, if we hire someone, what is it going to cost, the organization? Or if we buy a machine in the factory, or there's maintenance happening in the factory, if there's so much travel, so all of that. I'm constantly looking at, what our structural costs looking like. And the challenge that I have is that we've just come out of a mega transformation, mega reorganization in the last year to now, which is still ongoing. So which means our organization has become leaner than what it was before, So the conversation that I brought in is that we cannot be the same organization we were before the reorg, and the retrenchments. We have to look at our ways of working. We have to look at our processes. How do we automate, certain processes? We're going to overwork people if we want to continue working the way that we were working now with a smaller team. We are also blessed that, in a bigger organization, you are able to shift things to other markets, shift operational things, transactional things. How do we remove transactional things from the core of the organization and move elsewhere? So it's really an important conversation to have. And I always say we have boards or shareholders that are going to demand something from us. The reality is that you cannot get something from nothing. Something always comes out of something. They need to know for organizations to deliver an X number. This is what is needed. Without this resource, we're not going to get the X number. And that courage in the conversation is absolutely important. And I find that is where people are missing it. You get given a number, you get given a target, you just say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, I'll go and figure it out, and then you go and drown. So we need to have the courage to say, listen, if I'm not getting this is the risk. We are not going to achieve that number, and we need to boldly say that. So the last thing Dr. Decker spoke about is mental health. Mental health is real for all of us. And unfortunately, from some of us old school people, we were not taught anything at school about mental health. We don't know much about it. We're trying to figure it out now as we move in organizations. Really is the reality of particularly the era that we're in, and we need to figure it out. We need to get subject matter experts to come and teach us. How do we identify certain things? How do we identify burnout? How do we identify somebody when they're behaving out of character? Dr. Decker mentioned, people, leaders who are harsh, they've got too much power, How do we get to respond, or interact with such leaders to say, listen here, it looks like there's a medical problem here. What sort of support system do we have in organization to be able to identify issues and be able to say there is a medical problem here? A mental health problem needs to be like a physical health problem, it needs to be like any other health problem, that we create environments where we are comfortable to speak about them. We are able to identify when there is an issue, a health issue, and then we have mechanisms to say, listen, this is how we're going to address it. And we cannot address it without partnering with the right experts.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Portia. Thank you very much. Just before I take Dr. Mangisa, I see a very interesting comment in the chat room from Dr. Zola Zozani. Dr. Zozani is at Henley Business School.
It's very painful.
Says,
very painful.
He
Doc.
says, "Hi, Bo. Hi,
Doc, that cause it destroys marriages. You stop going to funerals. You stop. It's just books.
She said, please, we have MBA candidates on this platform.
Absolutely rewarding. Absolutely rewarding experience.
No, colleagues, those who are still studying, whether master's or PhD level, go for it. Go for it.
Please, Prof, I always say there's either no or very few black kids who've got trust funds, and all we have is education. I grew up in the then Republic of Venda, where President Mpepu kept on hammering to us, education. That is how you're going to get out of poverty. So yes. It's not an option for us, it is a must. We have to really get to the highest level of education that we can get.
Yeah. No, but thanks. We definitely understand you. We definitely understand what you said. We know exactly. We deal with students all the time. Dr. Mangisa, over to you, my brother.
Let me shoot for now. Thank you to Mrs. Portia. The conversation for today, it's a very pertinent one. I happen to have an opportunity to visit Vista Clinic in Centurion. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Doc.
Yes, and you get surprised. Who is there? You know, there's every Tom, Dick, and Harry there. You know, sorry to use that language. You find the CEOs, you find the MDs, you find everybody there. And, you know, challenges vary, you know, from, you know, work challenges, personal challenges, psychological challenges, but most of them, it is because of the toxicity, you know, of the environment at which they are working. You know, the speakers, you know, where Dr. Gama and the other doc have addressed it, you know, eloquently, that we are suffering, you know, from mental health issues, you know, as leaders in organizations, and we don't want to speak about that, whether because we're scared that we're gonna be told that we're weak, you know, we cannot handle pressure, and you know, and something to that effect. I also like the fact that, Portia, you are saying we need to change the perspective and reward the leaders for developing, you know, their followers, not rewarding leaders for being parasitic in such a manner that they are pushing people to, as much as they can, to give results, even where there is toxicity in the workplace. I like that narrative, because what you are saying is we have to reward leaders for being developers, for being mentors, for being coaches, you know, of the followers, the people they lead. In other words, we don't have to treat employees as assets, but treat them as owners of capital, not as assets. But now the question that I have, you know, to you, Sis Portia, just exploring on what you said, you know, that over a period of a year from last year, there's been a huge restructuring, you know, that has happened at Nestle, which is still happening, you know, because this thing is a process. It's not an event. But I want to juxtapose that with the fact that we need to treat people not as assets, but as owners of capital. The more we restructure, the more leaner organizations are, but we require more from people that we have retained. Now, how does it work now that we are, or we should be treating, we should be treating our employees as owners of human capital, not as, people who must continue to dig the ground so that we benefit more as leaders. If we continue to do restructuring, if we continue to be leaner as organizations moving forward. Thank you so much, Sisi, for the great talk.
Thank you, Doc Mangisa. You mentioned the word resilience, and the truth is harm in organizations or harm in general occurs when resilience is the answer to toxicity. There's toxicity that is happening, and we say, be resilient, and we reward people for their resilience, of taking the pain, That is when we are harming human beings, and you're talking about, mental health, big reality, and we don't talk because like anything that is looked down upon, how we grew up and then we saw somebody who's not well mentally, how we just treat them. And now when you see that, okay, something is off here, you want to hide yourself, because as a leader, we want to position ourselves as these demigods who are perfect beings, and then we've got everything figured out. So when collectively we destigmatize mental health and we countably allow ourselves to be vulnerable, vulnerable even in front of the people that report to us, vulnerable as a CEO, and you stand in front of your organization and you are vulnerable and you say, this one, I don't know. This one, let's figure it out together. Or I'm not okay, Let's make it okay to say we are not okay. And then we say, how do we help each other to figure it out? And that is when you start to have people say, oh, Kanti, I'm not alone, in this space. Because as leaders, we hide, we come back, we come home crying, and we don't know if I talk to someone, they're going to judge me. So we need to start somewhere, and somewhere means with us who are here, us who are talking about it, to say, hey, actually, you know what? I need to start being okay to say, listen, I'm not okay, colleagues. I need some time out, out of work. I need to go and, get some help, whatever that can be. So that is how we're going to change our environment, And for me, the power of the globe that we're in, it lies in the continent of Africa. That's where it is, So we really need, as people in Africa, we need to really move away from things that are not meaningful, but how do we enhance our humanity as one people? So that is absolutely critical, for us as leaders. So Doc, you speak about they're expecting more from lean structures. We need to remember why businesses exist. They exist for profit. A shareholder is saying, listen, I want to maximize as much profits as possible out of this investment. And from my experience, the targets are always stretched. They're always, overboard. But I'm going to again come back to courageous conversations. As CEOs, when we're sitting in those boards and we're taking the number, the expectation, are we having those courageous conversations to say, this is not going to work, this is not pragmatic, And as executives, and then we've got CEOs that we are answerable to, are we being courageous? Because at the end of the day, if we are not being honest, we are going to fail. Or the business is not going to be sustainable, And the strategy of the business also needs to be, clear and aligned. Are we on the short-term gain here? Short-term profit maximization, even if this thing falls apart, is okay. Or are we running an organization that we want to be sustainable for generations to come? And how do we pace ourselves, in terms of our commercial growth, looking at the resources that we have? The big challenge, and I see this in boards, I see this in ExCos. I have ExCo members who come and sit and become passengers in those ExCo meetings. And for me, that is a big problem. They walk out of the boardrooms and then they have a lot to say. But in those meetings, there's no one who's got the courage to say what everyone is thinking. So for me, that is absolutely, we're not going to have the world changing if we are sitting in our ExCos quiet. And the more, remember, you have an organization as an ecosystem of a bigger ecosystem. So then you're having executives here, executives there, executives there. All of us are engaging and opening these uncomfortable conversations with our boss and with our executives to say, what is meaningful? What is pragmatic? What is realistic for us to achieve? Then you're going to have boards that are starting to be understanding. The stress that I shared earlier about the exit of CEOs is because boards are under pressure. They're seeing their share prices tanking because of how the leaders are leading. So if the culture in an organization is bad, your people are leaving, the confidence in your brand is low, and your share price is dropping, there is no option. The board is going to sit and notice and say, no, there's something that we need to do differently here. So, but when we keep quiet for a long time and these behaviors are being encouraged, they are okay, we give short-term bonuses, we what, then we're not going to have a change in our organizations.
Okay, Dr. Kama, go ahead just briefly, and then Portia will respond.
Thank you. I had already put on the chat,
Okay.
not necessarily, I can still make a comment, but I just put on the chat that, organizations now, the issues of mental health are regarded as the new wealth for organizations. So this is almost like the slogan that we promote, because I do work in the space of mental health with organizations, to say, the new wealth, your wealth lies in your mental health of the people that you are employing. So I just wanted to sort of make that comment, but also just to also acknowledge that what Portia said in terms of the program of wellness and resilience. And I know she said something about resilience, but just focusing on the wellness one, to say, look, organizations do reach out. Maybe you can look at a wellness program that specifically looks at issues of mental health, and maybe package that with your coaching, because you already have coaching, which is also a powerful tool within the organization, but perhaps package coaching with other initiatives that will look at issues of mental health within organization. Of course, still maintaining the privacy, because that's another issue of sensitivity within organizations that we see when we do consult. But yeah, I wish we could have a conversation, Portia. Maybe we can take it outside of this.
Thanks, Dr. Gama. Thanks very much, my sister. Sis Portia, you will respond there, and then your parting shots as well. Thank you.
Yes. Let me just respond also to Dr. Mangisa here. So there's I know leaders don't like service in organizations, but there's two surveys that I clap in one. So there's a regular employee engagement survey that is actually founded by, you see, there's petals around here of our leadership framework. We call it NLF, Nestle Leadership Framework. So in this framework, we've got behaviors that we expect to see from our leaders, and we reward them and punish them accordingly, in line with how those behaviors are being demonstrated. So I ran a survey to check our employees seeing these behaviors, in our leaders. We also have within that survey a manager's performance index that we check, and there's certain questions that talks about a leader engaging with their team members, and then towards the end of the year, which is now for me right now, I ran a 360 survey, which is an emotional, social, and cultural index, looking at a leader's self-awareness, social awareness, their self-management, their relationship management, and really provoking questions, which we get to pose to their employees, which forces them to be honest, and coach for the feedback, and also give the leaders the tools to be able to handle, a difficult feedback and have those difficult conversations. So there is a lot that we can do in organizations, but key thing for me, when we elevate the conversations, we don't shy away from them. They become a critical and pivotal part of how we run our business. It's not a by the way. It's for HR. No, it's not for HR. Until we get to a position where we automate everything, we have robots doing everything in companies, we have no option but to cultivate people who can really thrive in our organizations. So it's not optional. So really, for me, that's it, Prof. That's it, colleagues. Thank you so much for the engagement. Thank you so much for the invitation, Prof. I'm definitely going to be joining this platform, and when available, come and drink, from the cups of other leaders. Really looking forward to that, and I'm really honored for the participation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ms. Portia. Definitely, Mrs. Tandia will tell you that this session is very contagious.
I can see that.
There's no way you'll attend, and you don't have to come back again, but thanks, my sister. Can I ask Professor Mdluli, my professor, over to you, sir? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Majola, and my sister. Thought-provoking presentation in so many ways. simple, practical, challenging all of us, both those in private sector and those in the public service. You have given us lots to think about. The issue of toxicity in leadership is something that we cannot take for granted anymore or run away from. What we appreciate more is when you gave us some criteria to be able to look at and say, let's do self-reflection, all of us, and say, are you developing the team? Are you adding value to the teamwork? Are you contributing positively to the development and growth of the team? Or are you destroying the team? And we all can destroy our teams from whatever level. So reflection calls us to be very open and be very honest. It also challenges us that we must not try to protect ourselves. We must not aim to appear as good and as perfect, but we must aim to appear as people who are there to develop other people and contribute to the betterment of the organization. When you indicated the aspect of transparency, it touches all of us. And I felt this is a challenge that we can start practicing even in our homes. Let's look at ourselves in our homes. How toxic are you? Once you remind people, I am the parent, my question is, whom are you reminding? Did you forget yourself? Are you trying to remind yourself that you are the parent? Or are you now imposing yourself as a parent? When you hear a person saying, as the CEO, as the principal, as the head of this organization, you must know something is gone very wrong. My question is, whom are you reminding? Are you reminding yourself, or are you trying to take that cap to impose yourself on other people? It's like you are saying, I am untouchable. I should not be questioned. Whatever I say should go. You have no right to question me. Listen, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, there's something wrong with you, not with what I'm saying or what I'm doing. Toxicity is something that we need to face quite seriously and say it corrodes every organization, it corrodes every family, it corrodes every relationship in a way that it destroys trust, it destroys respect, it suffocates growth, it makes people to shrink and shrink gradually until they die. Many leaders have died long ago. Their funerals have just been postponed, but they have died long ago in those positions. And a leader who is dead makes sure that he shares his or her funeral with the other people, in that make sure that they also start dying gradually. Fear becomes a norm. Withdrawal becomes a practice. People keep silent. And we have, in so many ways, baptized that situation. It's a conversation. It has started. I would love to see those in the social sciences taking us much further and say, how do we apply this even in the family context? How do we apply this even in simple situations? How do we avoid passing our toxic natures to the little ones of the people that we are mentoring? Because it's easy to feel like I am right in everything. Everybody is wrong in everything. And that's where being toxic grows with no limits. Thank you very much for the presentation. Would really appreciate to get this presentation and interact with it in a way that we are building ourselves. Remember, when you are toxic, you are destroying other people because you are dead yourself. And you need to accept that and say, I need life, I need to be back. Being arrogant makes you to be big-headed. And I say, once you become big-headed, that's when you become pig-headed. You become big-headed, you become pig-headed. And a pig treats diamond and gold the same way it treats clay and mud. That is a pig for you. and we can avoid that and say, let us be human. Thank you very much. We look forward to more interactions. We look forward to more conversations. We are learning. We are growing. We appreciate that. Prof. Majola and the audience, thank you very much. We are learning. We are growing. I close with a simple quote that I always say, let us never stop learning because life never stops teaching. Thank you, Prof. Majola.
Powerful, powerful.
Powerful indeed. Thanks, my professor. Thank you very much. Sis Portia, thank you so much, my sister. Ladies and gentlemen, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you could get some leadership material there. And then please, all of you, just make sure that you do subscribe. Otherwise, thank you so much. Those who've joined us for the first time, please do join us again. As we said, we meet every Wednesdays. Same time, same place, same log details, everything are the same. And we hope to see you again next week for another powerful session with another speaker. Thank you so much, and may God bless you until we meet next week. The session is adjourned now. Thank you, and God
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.